Okay guys, seeing as Dragon Ball underwhelming is wrapping up, I thought this would be the perfect time to go over the series that started it all. So for the next few weeks, I'm gonna be going over the classic, and in some cases dusty original animes from like 100 years ago. So the story begins with a boy named Goku, doing nothing of importance and living by himself. So he meets up with a girl called Bloomer, who at first tries to spray him because she thinks he's an op, but then they get to know each other and they start chilling. Bloomer tells Goku that they need to find a dragon's balls to grant a wish, and for some reason there's 7 and not just 2, and Goku already has one from his grandfather who passed, and Bloomer has like 2. Also, they meet a turtle that brings back an old man, and he's like chill as hell. Then they go to some place where a pig has been hand delivering out to an entire village. Like, why don't these niggas have the straps like that girl over there? But anyway, they get him to quit all that nonsense and join the sets. Then they go to the desert, and some bum ass nigga and his cat try to hit a lick on the heroes, but he's one of those, so he leaves as soon as he sees Bloomer. So later on, Goku tries to get a second fate from the bum, and this time he almost puts him on a stretcher, so the bum decides to help them out. Then they go to some mountain that's on fire because the king doesn't know how to do his own job, and also he has a lame ass daughter, and he reveals that the chill old man is actually his old teacher, so they go get him to fix the problem, and that's that, I guess. Then one day when they're rolling through town, the hitters try to line them up and turn their girl into a vegetable, but the other guys weren't going, so Goku upped the pull on the hood niggas and sent them to the moon, and also brought the girl back. Then out of nowhere, some imp shows up with his indentured servants, and they run games on our main niggas, and somehow manage to finesse all the orbs and also trap them. But before the imp can make his wish, the pig does it for him and completely screws him over. Also, Goku tells the story about how his fam got put in a shirt because a giant monster came in a full moon, and then Goku looks at the moon and becomes King Kong and starts handing out L's left and right and basically being a problem for everyone. So the bum's cat managed to cut off the boy's tail and bring him back to normal, and the rest of the group puts 3 and 5 together and realize that it was Goku himself that got his fam out of the way, but they all decide not to tell him because they don't want him to get in his feelings. So Bloomer and the bum decide to get married, and the arc ends with Goku leaving to train with the old man. So in the next season, Goku tries to train on the old man, but he's not trying to do all that anymore. And then some bald guy pulls up and also wants to train, so he tells them that if they find him a hoe, then he'll give them a boxing lesson. Then they find a girl trying to hit a lick, but changes personalities when she sneezes, which by itself is whatever, but she also changes her hair color, like what the hell. So the old man decides to train them, and at first the bald kid is a lame and tries to antagonize the real one, but then he comes around to become niggas for life. So after the training, all the relevant guys reunite and decide to be in a tournament for some funds. So the first match is the bald guy versus some guy that smells like trash. Not only does he smell like trash, but also fights like trash, so the bald guy gets him out of the way quick. Then it's the bum versus Jackie Chan, and of course Mr. Han refuses to take an L to a scrub, so the bum is taken out. That's who nobody's fight, but who cares. Then Goku faces off against a dinosaur and catches a W, so he makes it to the semi-finals. So the bald kid loses to Jackie Chan, and Goku beats some nobody, so all that's left is the boy and the old man. So the fight goes on for some time, niggas throwing hands, but then Goku becomes King Kong again, and this time they put the moon in a blunt, so now he can never do that nonsense ever again. So after an almost equal match, eventually Jackie wins, and since Jackie is obviously the old man that's been training him, he gets the money and uses it to have them all eat out. So the niggas was feeling wavy. So in the next season, Goku helps a nobody feed his village, and then the imp and his slaves are back in their old nonsense, looking for the orbs at the same time as Goku, and a bunch of nonsense goes down in a village, but who cares. But then Hydra comes out of nowhere and does a sweep on their village looking for the orbs too. So this guy called Lieutenant Gray starts something with Goku, so he puts him on a stretcher. Then the leader of Hydra decides to put him on the news for his failure. Meanwhile, Goku goes to another village while Hydra's been bullying the locals. So once again, Goku gotta save the limbs and fight even more guys, and this time he has to go up a tower that's being led by Sergeant Aryan. So the Aryan lets loose some robot that gets put out of order by the real one, but then when he gets to the next level, he meets a ninja that also takes an L. But just before the ninja is put in the dirt, he calls some robot called 8, another one of 11 siblings. But 8 refuses to throw hands because he's a pacifist, and he's real, like he understands that violence solves nothing. But then some monster almost makes him cook food, so he gotta get out of the way. Eventually the Aryan gives Goku a couple of shells, which makes 8 feel some type of way, so he sends him to the netherworld. So after all that, 8 and Goku decide to meet 8's creator to help him remove a bomb or something, because I guess these guys are also terrorists. But that one ninja from like 70 episodes ago shows up again just to cause more problems. Eventually they find the creator and he removes the bomb, so Goku throws it, but it happens to hit the ninja, so nothing of value to the world is lost. Then Goku leaves to meet with Bloomer, so she can fix some orb locator that broke. So the boy and the girl meet up and look for the orb in the sea, so they get a submarine from the old man, and the bald guy shows back up and has joined them in their quest. Meanwhile, they're being stopped by some weirdo general from Hydra that stay doing weirdo stuff. So Hydra finds out where the niggas are staying and prepare to light it up because they know he'd be chilling with the old man, but the old man takes them out of the way because as we all know he got the hands. So Goku, Bloomer, and the bald guy take the submarine to a cave while the weirdo general stays on their ass, following them through another submarine. Then there's some robot, but he doesn't matter. So eventually the bald guy and the girl go back underwater, but then the general tells them to hand him over if they want to see another day. So Bloomer tries to be a hoe around him, but it doesn't work because he's not into all that. Then he freezes the niggas and almost puts them out of commission until Goku shows up and throws hands with him too. Then the cave collapses, so the main niggas get out quick, while the general also escapes but needs a doctor now. So Bloomer is in her feelings because Goku didn't tell her about the odds beforehand, but neither he or the viewers really give a shit. But then the general shows back up and finesses the orb and puts them next to the bomb because he's a sicko. Before the heroes got put on the paper, the girl that sneezes pulls up and saves them, and then they end up in another show. Then a bunch of stuff happens and Goku and the general throw hands again, but Goku gets helped by that girl from the other show, so the heroes take a W and going about their quest. So it cuts to some Indians that have an orb now, and since Hydra keeps tabs on everything, they try to pull up but they take an L, and then Goku shows up and gives them another L, so well. Meanwhile, the general returns to the Hydra base, and to punish him for not having an orb ready, the leader makes him fight yet another weirdo that's like a hitman, but this time the general wasn't so fortunate, and he ends up becoming a pack. Then the hitman arrives to where the Indians are staying, and he puts the man on his shirts. Then he gets Goku out of the way, and finesses his stuff too, so niggas are shook. So the hitman goes to the tailor and presses him to make a new fit. While this is going on, the Indian kid is making an obituary for our main hero, when suddenly he wakes up, and then the kid tells him about a guy who has water that can make you stronger. So Goku climbs up the tower and meets up with the cats, and he starts playing games, and makes him do all kinds of nonsense in order to just get a drink, but he also gives him a bean that restores his health, so it's whatever. Eventually Goku proves himself worthy and gets the water, but it turns out the water ain't doing nothing, and it was all the training that made him stronger. So eventually Goku pisses off from the tower and throws hands with the hitman again, and since Goku is now stronger than him, the hitman feels some type of way, and then the boy tells me he just got some water, so the hitman goes up the tower and gets scammed by the cats, and still ends up taking an L to Goku. After all this, Goku decides to find where Hydra stay and put them all underground, and Bloomer decides to watch him because she fears for his safety, but I'm not really sure why, seeing as he obviously got the hands, it can take care of himself. Eventually Goku pulls up on Hydra and starts building tombstones left and right, and then the leader abandons the Negro to throw hands with the boy. Then the leader quadruple crosses his niggas and drops the roof over them, and reveals that all this nonsense was just so he could become taller. Since the Negro is a real one, he puts the leader on his shirts and becomes the new leader, but Goku gets him out of the way, and it seems that Hydra is officially extinct. So all the good guys reunite and meet up at the old man's crib in order to fix the orb locator, since no matter what the locator won't work, they have to venture out and link up with the old man's sister in order to find the last orb. Also, they bring the Indian kid along because Goku wants to bring his fam back from the dirt. So the old man's sister makes them fight a bunch of lames, and so Goku finally fights a nigga that actually matters. The old man reveals it's actually his grandfather, and after giving his grandson an L, reveals to him who he is, and that he's allowed to stay for one day in order to throw hands with him. Then the Indian kid feels some type of way, because he thinks Goku should wish his own fam back to life instead, but the guy says he's fine where he is, so I guess that's that. Then the old man's sister reveals that the last orb is actually with the imp and his slaves, so Goku pulls up on them, and the imp offers a fade, and of course Goku takes another W and gets them out of the way. So now he has all the orbs, and he uses them to wish the Indian back to life, and all is well in the world once again. So 3 years later, the guys have been training, and despite that they all still look the same, but it's whatever. The bum and the bug guy meet up with the rest of the main niggas to sign up for another tournament, and also wait for the main character to get back. While they're waiting for the plot to begin, the old man's main op shows up with his students who are like a cyclops and a doll, and basically they start taking cheap shots at the main characters. So finally Goku gets back, and the niggas have a reunion, and the boy vows to defeat Jackie Chan. So all the characters I've just mentioned have a fight with a bunch of relevant no names that really don't matter, so we don't have to go over them. But anyway, they make it to the quarterfinals, and the first match is between the bum and the cyclops, and as expected, the bum serves no purpose in the story other than to get hoed. Then the old man fights against a werewolf, and he completely plays him like a fool and makes him look bad. Then the bald guy throws hands with the doll and takes the W because the doll can't counter or something. He's a dumbass. After that, Goku fights a nobody and wins obviously. Like honestly, what else could have happened? It was as clear as soon as the tournament began who the final two would be, honestly. So the semi-finals begin, and the first round is the Cyclops versus the old man, and the old man tries to get his opponents to cool with the gimmicks and join the real ones, but the Cyclops want to remain a bitch, so the old man just walks out. So the next match is Goku versus the bald guy, and of course Goku won, like who's the bald guy? So finally the match we've all been waiting for happens, and it's Goku versus the Cyclops. It's pretty much evenly matched, but Goku low-key gets an advantage and almost gets him out of the way, but then as they're both falling in one of the most iconic scenes in the franchise, the boy gets hit by a bus, so the Cyclops is declared the winner, but for some reason now he's a good guy and offers to give Goku half the prize money and pay for dinner, so you know everyone's having a gay old time. Then the bald guy goes to retrieve some stuff Goku left behind at the tournaments, so while everyone's eating, Goku feels some type of way and decides to go check on his comrade, but it's too late because some lizard put him on his shirts. So the other niggas meet up and see that the bald guy caught an L, so Goku starts hunting for his new op, while the old man recognizes that a fluid is behind this and gets shook. It turns out that back in the day when the old man and his op were young, the world was under attack by a green man and his offspring, and basically got almost everyone out of the way, but the old man's teacher was able to seal him into some rice cooker, but then that lame ass imp released him because he thought he would help him take over the world or something with his dumb ass, but instead the green man had his son put every fighter in the tournament on the news so nobody could stop him. So Goku catches his op, but unfortunately the op is the one that's not lacking, so Goku gets put on a stretcher and ends up in a forest where he meets some fat ass samurai that doesn't even have an army. While this is happening, the old man, the Cyclops, and the doll are tracking down the remaining orbs, and eventually the green man meets up with Goku and gives him the beats, and then he finesses his orb. Then the old man pulls up and tries to steal the green man, but it doesn't work, so he goes in the dirt. Then right before the green man makes a wish, he puts the doll on the news, and so far he's killed so many main niggas that it's a completely different show now. So the green man wishes to be young again, but then he puts the dragon on his shirt so that nobody else can make moves with him like he did. Meanwhile, Goku and the samurai decides to leave in order to seek out the cat that gave him water so they can get off a bean. With his youth restored, the green man takes over the world world and gets the imp out of the way and starts really giving the whole planet L's. Eventually Goku and the samurai get to where they need to be, and Goku drinks some water that makes him stronger than the Green Man, so that's cool I guess. So the Cyclops pulls up on the Green Man, and the Green Man has his son handle his light work for him, and the Cyclops tries to steal the Green Man and doesn't work out. So the main character finally arrives and puts the Green Man's son in the ground. Then Goku and the Green Man throw hands, and eventually Goku puts him in a blunt, but before he fades away, he spits out his last son, who's obviously gonna be the main op next season. So after this, Goku meets up with the Cat in order to find a way to bring the wish orbs back, and he reveals that the creator of them dwells above, so they just have to meet him. But before he meets up with him, he comes across a Negro genie that plays him like a clown. Eventually the creator of the orbs and Goku meet up, and he looks exactly like the Green Man Goku just put in the dirt, so the boy gets in his feelings. But it's okay, cause this Green Man is the guardian of the earth, and the good counterpart to the evil Green Man, cause they split apart long ago. So Goku trains with the guardian in order to get ready to face off against the Green Man Jr. in the future. And then the guardian resurrects the wish orbs, and all the niggas that got put in a shirt by the Green Man as niggas come back to life. So it's 3 years later, and now all the guys are grown up, and there's yet another tournament. So Goku meets up with Green Man Jr. and some hoe that's in her feelings. So in the first round, it's a bunch of irrelevant niggas getting out of the way, and also the Hitman is back and he puts the doll on a stretcher. Also the Hitman is the Cyclops teacher's brother. So the first fight starts with the Cyclops versus the Hitman, and the Cyclops takes the W. Then Goku finds a nobody that turns out to be the king whose village was on fire's daughter, and apparently he said he would marry her, and that's why she feels some type of way. So he agrees and resolves that conflict. Then the Green Man has the bald guy in L, and then some rando puts the bum on a stretcher, but it turns out that it's not actually a rando, but it's the guardian of the earth possessing a rando. After that, Goku and the Cyclops get a rematch, and Goku gets him out of the way. So then it's the guardian versus the Green Man. The guardian tries to steal the Green Man but doesn't work out, and he ends up getting sealed himself. So now it's up to Goku to save the world once again. So Goku and the Green Man throw hands, and Goku takes the W. But before the guardian can get the Green Man out of the way, Goku steps in the middle because he knows that if the Green Man dies, then the guardian dies too, and the wish orbs will cease to exist. And then the old man says they need the wish orbs, so the guardian agrees not to put himself on their shirts. So the series ends with Goku and some girl leaving to get married. Overall, this show is pretty classic. I mean, I don't really care much for the lame ass humor, but the story is actually pretty interesting, and the fight scenes are also cool, so you know it's lit. I'm sure you all know what's coming next week, so look forward to that. And just remember that the bum was a fucking bum from the very beginning, and it's not like he was made useless in later materials, contrary to what people think. Okay guys, make sure that when you subscribe you hit the notification button, because that lets you know whenever I make a new video, and as always, thanks for watching.